Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, hello everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday, December 11th. Hope you're doing well. Looking forward to another fun edition today. Of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway. Brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda. A loaded show today, as always. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and BTN Network will join us. Chronic Hoosier, and special guest, coach of the college football playoff-bound Washington Huskies, Kalen DeBoer, will join us as well. Looking forward to that. Recent Coach of the Year, as a matter of fact, Kalen DeBoer. How about them apples? Congratulations to him on winning that award. We'll congratulate him again when he joins us as the college football playoffs are around the corner. Washington will be taking on Texas as Alabama and Michigan battle in the other national semifinal to see who gets to play for it all. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline early and often. Fred, Cheryl, Larry, Las Vegas Larry, Bob down in my old haunt of Georgetown. Doug up and at it down in Lagodi. Sean, how are you, sir? Says, anyone else struggling to get very excited about this season's Indiana men's basketball team? Obvious roster construction issues. We'll talk about that. Fozan, how are you, sir? From Amon Jordan. 5 lefts. Rudy the Boxer. Dave G. Jamie. Philip. Mike, how are you, sir? And Neil. Down in Bedford. Hope everybody's doing well. Off to a good start. Man, looking forward to talking to Kalen. I know he's a busy guy. You think? But grateful that he'll take time off of preparation for the college football playoffs to join us. Indiana football, speaking of which, Coach Kurt Cignetti having a pretty decent little run. Yesterday was a good day for him and Indiana football, as you got a commitment from 2024 defensive end Daniel Duke Ndake. Defensive back Jordan Greer becomes the first Indiana player to take his name out of the portal and return to Indiana. You get a commitment from 2024 Pennsylvania defensive end Mario Landino. And you've got Wake Forest transfer running back Justice Allison committing to Indiana. That happened a few days ago. And 2024 Miami, Florida quarterback Alberto Mendoza. That just sounds like a good quarterback name, doesn't it? I mean, back to throw. Mendoza drops back across the middle to that. We don't know yet. But it's just got a good ring to it. Indiana is, I don't think we're going to have to worry about there's going to be quarterback battles, but there will no longer be a quarterback race at the start of the season next year. That I would be shocked, more than shocked, to see This is not a staff that, or Kurt Signetti is not a guy who doesn't make decisions. He makes decisions. And I think that he comes from a little bit better place of making them. So football fans should feel good about what they're looking forward to. I don't know what he's going to be able to do in the first season. Losing all that he's lost is going to be tough to replace. I mean,
I got to say, though, the one thing that I think keeps fans excited the most, and again, it is a different job. It is a Power 4 league, I should say, not Power 5. But Kurt Signetti has never had a losing record, and everybody's curious if he's going to be able to keep that record going, that streak going, I should say, into his first season with Indiana. Especially with a place that's as hard to win at as Indiana. If you can come in your first season and even just be one win above 500, I feel like that would be a big success for Signetti.
Well, one game above 500 would have been a success for the last coaching staff.
True, but at the same time, Tom Allen had seen 2 seasons where he won 4 games over 500. So, but I do understand what you mean.
But the good thing about next year is, in addition to that, is Indiana has 8 home football games. That makes a difference, a huge
absolutely.
Difference.
Your only road matchups, you will go to Ohio State, you'll go to Northwestern, you'll go to Michigan State, and you'll go to UCLA. Not in that order, but those are the 4 teams you'll play on the road.
And I cannot wait to go to the Rose Bowl.
That'll be in week 3 for you, Jimbo.
That is nuts. I don't know why. Yes, there we go. Florida, FIU to start off with. Then you have Western Illinois, the Leathernecks. Don't fear the Leathernecks, baby.
It's a cool mascot, that's for sure.
What is their mascot?
It's so the logo is like a bulldog. But they are the Leathernecks. That's their actual name.
Got it. Well, I know that, but didn't know what their mascot was. Cool. Very awesome. But Florida International and then the Leathernecks. Then that gets broken up with a Big Ten game at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles, in Pasadena against UCLA. A UCLA team that is not.
A lot of people think Chip Kelly is a lame duck coach next year.
That's very possible. What if? And I don't want to get into this what ifs and stuff because
what else is there to do, though? I mean, all there is what ifs. We have nothing else to base
exactly. What a great point. So what if I fully expect Indiana to win those first 2 games. Going to the Rose Bowl to take on UCLA is probably a tough challenge no matter what. But for a team like Indiana, that's an even tougher challenge. But UCLA was not exactly world beaters this year. They fell off. And the fact that you just mentioned, there is a great possibility Chip Kelly's a lame duck coach. That makes things, that gives players other things to think about. So let's say, what if they're able to pull that off? A stunner, go 3-0. You come back to Memorial Stadium to take on Charlotte. There's a win for you, 4-0.
You have Maryland, I believe, correct?
You follow that up with another home game against Maryland. That could put you at 5-0. Then you travel to Northwestern. Now, yes, it's Northwestern, but Northwestern was decent this year, and they're always decent, and it's on the road. So who knows? But those first 6 games, probably all winnable. The first 6. Can you imagine?
A lot of it depends on what your roster looks like, but I could not be more. I don't want to say I'm pleased because you never know how things are going to shape out. But for Kurt Signetti's first year as head coach, I feel like he has been given a gift,
a very, very welcome thing. So after those first 6 games, they get a bye game, a bye week,
right in the middle of the season.
and then you welcome in Nebraska to Memorial Stadium. Nebraska is going to be a tough game. I don't care what anybody says. They are getting better under Matt Rule. Indiana will probably be an underdog in that game, even though they're at home, depending upon what they've done up until that point. So we'll see. Following that weekend, our good friend Kalen DeBoer and his Washington Huskies will be in Bloomington. How about them apples?
It would have been more interesting if Penix would still be around. Obviously, he won't be, but it would be something if he still would be.
Don't let me forget to ask Kalen about coaching in Memorial Stadium next season.
Yeah.
That is going to be a little wild, but very cool too. Can you imagine if they are the reigning national champions?
Man, would that be the first time Indiana? Well, not. I guess they played Ohio State as a reigning national champion before, but it'd been the first time in a long time Indiana's faced a reigning national title winner.
Yep, they played a lot of college football teams, and as which they will do next year again. 2 college football playoff teams on Indiana's roster with the Washington Huskies. 2 weeks later, they take on Michigan with the Michigan State Spartans in between. The Wolverines come to Memorial Stadium as well. Then they get another bye because they started off in week 0 before traveling over to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes, and then you finish the year with Purdue in Memorial Stadium. And I don't know how well Purdue's going to make a jump or not, but next year's going to be fun and interesting. I really believe that.
Yeah, I do too. And it's easy to put expectations where you want them to be because it's fun to do that, but there's no way to tell how good this team will be at all just because we have no idea what the roster is going to look like. Now we know how good Kurt Cignetti is and what he wants to do, but he still has to keep guys. He still has to bring in his own guys, and his staff has to work well together. So, and again, a lot of his guys on the staff are guys from James Madison, so we know that chemistry should be there, but will they all adjust well to the power conference level? We'll just have to see.
Alberto Mendoza, the quarterback, is a former James Madison commit. Three of these were former James Madison commits who decommitted and have accepted offers from Indiana. But Alberto Mendoza, one of those, a Miami, Florida quarterback, made the call on Monday announcing his commitment to Indiana. He is a 3-star prospect, was a former James Madison commit under Cignetti, as I mentioned. Now he makes the pledge to follow Cignetti and his staff to Bloomington, and he is the supposed quarterback of Indiana's future in the class of 2024. We shall see who will be the quarterback next year. Will it be Taven Jackson or I don't know.
I still think Jordan McLeod, who is in the transfer portal, still will end up committing to Indiana as a grad transfer from James Madison. I believe he'll end up being Indiana's starter. But again, he has to commit to Indiana first. So
we shall see. In Mendoza's senior season at Columbus High School in Miami, Mendoza threw for nearly 2,000 yards, 22 touchdowns. He was also a threat with his legs, running for nearly 7 yards a carry on 46 attempts. For his varsity career, he threw for over 4,400 yards and 56 touchdowns with just 12 picks. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Looking forward to it. But we've got a great schedule on hand. Like we said, Mike DeCourcy up next. And in our second hour, don't miss it, Washington coach Kalen DeBoer. We're back with all that and much more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. I need more coffee. I'm going to get more coffee. What is today?
Tuesday.
No, the date.
The 12th.
You let me say December 11th.
I didn't know you said it.
I think I did. I think I did. I think I did. I think I did.
Is DeCourcy coming on today? Normally he'd be on by now. Did he tell you anything last week? Because I wasn't here on last Tuesday.
Not to my knowledge, Joe.
Usually he emails me too, so I figured he would be on here. Mushroom coffee. I'm reading a comment. Sean, I'm curious why they would pursue the Ohio quarterback harder than they would the guy who's already been under Cignetti's system. The one thing I would think that would make sense, and I don't know that how old this guy is, but if Curtis Rourke is a couple years younger than Jordan McLeod, then I understand it because obviously you have more eligibility, and he is a proven guy from the MAC. So if that's the case, I get it. But other than that, I don't see why you wouldn't pursue McLeod. But all right, here we go. Mike's not here yet. I'll send him a text.
Better than a birdie, but you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's December 12th. I might have said it December 11th earlier. I apologize if I did. I never know what day it is. Just one day to the next. But was talking about Indiana football, and I was wondering, I had written this out yesterday, but how well will Curt Cignetti do in bringing in the talent likely needed to not be what Purdue was like in their first year? And I'm not harping on Purdue. They had a coaching change. It's difficult. It makes life difficult when you have a change like that and you lose all the talent they did, kind of like Indiana is when Jeff Brom left. A lot of guys followed him or just found other places. But Curt Cignetti seemed to be building it back up in the way that he wants to build it. So I don't doubt that he will be doing just that. Now, whether that can compete with the upper level, we'll find out. But I also think a lot of time, how many times do you see a guy transfer from a low-end school that ends up playing successfully? We've seen it in basketball all the time. And in his opening press conference, Cignetti said that his best transfers have been from the smaller schools, not from the P5 schools. And I'm going to continue to say P5 because while the Pac-12 is no longer what it is the way we knew it, I don't think it's going away. I think it will still be here in an eventual marriage with the Mountain West. which I love the Mountain West name too. Maybe they could combine those, Pac-12 Mountain West or the Mountain West Pac-12 or the Pac Mountain West. So who knows? But yeah, that I was starting to wonder about Cignetti, and then yesterday, boom, the gates kind of opened up. Bronny made his debut. Bronny James, of course, I'm talking about. On the hardwood, I believe, for USC.
USC, and you are correct, but I don't know if you know this, Jim. They lost the first game he played in. They lost to Long Beach State in overtime.
I did not see that.
But, of course, that's not the story for some reason. But it's because it's Bronny James making his debut.
But there you go. West Virginia guard Raekwon Battle filed a federal lawsuit against the NCAA on Friday and asked a judge to issue a temporary restraining order in his effort to gain immediate eligibility to play. Man, we have seen this over and over and over. The NCAA finally makes the rule of the one-time transfer rule that says, all right, we're going to let you transfer one time, no worries, immediate eligibility, which I'm fine with. But at the same time, I think that if you sign this big NIL deals, I think that NIL deals should be able to be two-year deals. There's no professional that has the freedom that these guys have. So I think there should be a way to equal it out, balance it out. But regardless of that, getting back to this in Raekwon Battle's lawsuit, his lawyers have accused the NCAA of weaponizing waiver requests with inconsistent evaluations. Did he say the words inconsistent and NCAA in the same sentence? Huh? What's he mean? That's a joke. The NCAA denied Battle's initial waiver request to play after transferring in the spring from Montana State, his second school. Last month, the appeal West Virginia filed on his behalf. Players who transfer twice need a waiver to play immediately at their next school, was also denied months after the NCAA announced a more rigid list of guidelines for players seeking waivers. Those guidelines include proof that a transfer would enhance a player's mental health if it had been impaired at a previous school. Now, this is something that, like him or not, Jim Harbaugh brought up. This is at least 2 years ago, and maybe longer than that. But I distinctly remember sitting there at Big Ten Media Days, and he's talking about this. He goes, I'm not at all disparaging mental health. He said, but I also believe that mental health is being used as a crutch by a lot of players to transfer. I believe that as well. And this is a case where in his waiver request, Battle, who had averaged almost 18 points a game at Montana State, said his transfer to West Virginia was beneficial to his mental health, the byproduct of a traumatic stretch in recent years. Battle was one of the few indigenous Division I basketball players, has also accused the NCAA of ignoring Native American communities. Oh, so now we're pulling everything in. There you go. That's the world we live in. The complaint alleges the Battle's name, image, and likeness opportunities have been compromised by the waiver denial. Why? For the reasons stated above, the plaintiff asked the court to judge, hold, and declare that he has economic right to market and license his name, image, and likeness. Well, he already does. Stated that we'll see how that works out. North Carolina receiver Tez Walker missed the first 4 games of this past season, you remember, after his waiver was initially denied, and then that one was changed. But I don't know that that was the same situation. Texas Tech senior forward Devin Cambridge will miss the rest of the college basketball season because of a knee injury. Bronny James, like I said, suffered cardiac arrest back in July and made his debut last night. So glad to see him getting to get out there. But is there a relation to COVID? That's the question. Are athletes at more risk for cardiac arrest issues? A lot to get down to there. More than we have time for. That's for certain. Where should Riley Leonard, Cam Ward, and Kyle McCord end up? Quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal. Can you imagine if Kyle McCord ended up in Indiana? Wouldn't that be funny?
It would be nuts, but there is a lot of talk that Kyle McCord will end up at Nebraska, believe it or not, which would be quite the get for Matt Rule.
But wait a minute. But Matt Rule says getting a quarterback out of the transfer portal costs $2 million.
They probably have $2 million. Somebody probably stepped up.
He ain't paying $2 million. They're not buying a quarterback from Ohio State. I can tell you that. I mean, he left Ohio State, but I just find it ironic that the guy who was moaning and complaining about a quarterback costing $2 million in the transfer, but that's horse, bleep.
And it may be.
But I'm sure that there are some.
Doesn't mean that he doesn't have the money for it. Because, again, it's Nebraska football. They've sold out umpteen million consecutive home football games. I'm sure they have plenty of money to go around if need be.
And I don't doubt that some teams, there may be guys that are getting that at certain places.
And again, any of the blue bloods, along with some of the other less powerful blue bloods, if you want to call them that, like Nebraska, they have that kind of money too. Because even though Nebraska hasn't been a contender since the early 2000s, they still have a supporting fan base, a really good supporting fan base at that.
I spoke of UCLA earlier. Dante Moore is quarterback transferring, and Moore is likely at the top of a lot of people's boards because of his upside, eligibility, and flashes he showed this fall at UCLA. They think his best fit is Michigan on here, but the sheer fact that they're losing a quarterback, of course, they'll gain one, but they're losing one. So there's another talk about UCLA. Yeah, but your Cal McCord to Nebraska. That makes sense to me too. I don't think Kyle McCord is the flashy quarterback that Ohio State needed, but he was young and learning. They were quarterback poor a little bit this year. And then you've got this big potential rule proposal change coming that would allow schools to deal directly with athletes NIL. When that happens, I think the floodgates truly open. If Texas A&M is going to pay $70 million for a coach to go away, how much money are they going to pay for a player to come play for them? It won't be $70 million, but if they think that if coach tells them this is the guy we have to have, they will not have problems coming up with $5 million for a quarterback. They love their football. They want that success back. They're on the cusp. They're right there. Matt Rule did a great job in his first season. And they probably got money from what's his name? Who's one of the richest men in the world? Lives there in Nebraska. My
Man,
pizza
one of the
give it
richest
thing.
people in the world lives in Nebraska. What would you be doing in Nebraska other than watching Nebraska
Making
sports?
Making money.
I guess. Is he an alum?
You know what? That's a good question. He probably never went to college.
What's this dude's name? I'm trying to figure it out.
It's driving me nuts. It's on the tip of my
See if I can
tongue.
figure it out.
Obviously, it's he's one of the richest people in the world.
Oh, is it Warren Buffett?
Hathaway. Or Warren Buffett. Yes. Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett. Exactly. There you go. Thank you, Tanis. But yeah, he owns Berkshire Hathaway. A share to Berkshire Hathaway, just one share, I don't even know what it costs now. $100,000 for a share, something like that. But let's say, and I'm not saying they get money from him, but he could drop lunch money for an entire season's worth of NIL for them. So you got that going for you, which is nice. Hey, we got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, including Chronic Hoosier in our second hour and Washington coach Kalen DeBoer. Stick around. We're back with more coming up right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. I haven't heard from Mike. Maybe something came up and he's busy.
Yep. Well, he would usually text, so
I know that's why I was curious, because I usually hear from him.
I apologize for eating. Let's see. I like Peyton Manning eating on the Manning cast.
Oh, yeah.
Although they'll always show clips of him in the break trying to hurry something down.
All right, here we go.
Where are we going?
Serving all of Bloomington. We're going to segment 3. Next event, one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's December 12th. Halfway to Christmas Eve. I'll be dreaming of Christmas. Easy there. That probably blew some people's ears out.
See, I'm going to put myself. Ever since we started doing this thing where I stay in, but you can't see me, a lot of times when I'm sitting there trying to switch out the music, I forget I'm still in the stream. But here, radio didn't hear that because I already had it. I had it silenced on the radio thing. I'm nerding out on the technical aspect of this right now. YouTube heard that, but radio did. But again, it throws me off whenever I don't see myself in the stream. Excuse me. And then I sit there and start fooling around with buttons and stuff, and then it scares half the audience. So I apologize.
I thought that was just because I was singing.
Oh, it was kind of funny if that's the case, but that's not what I was going for. I just accidentally, I did two things wrong. I forgot I was in the stream, and then I turned it up and blew my own ears out. So carry on, I guess.
Carry on, carry over. Is Indiana basketball, first of all, Juwan Morgan, Howard, I even wrote it down as Morgan. Juwan Howard, the coach at Michigan, has been on medical leave for a heart procedure he went through. Back with the team as an assistant right now, as Phil Martelli still runs things. Speaking of Phil Martelli, that was something I was thinking of and kind of goes into my next thing to talk about. But Juwan Morgan apparently on what's known as I've never heard of this term before, zero tolerance policy. You ever heard of that, John?
I'm familiar, and I know you are too, but I don't know if I'm playing into it correctly.
No, yeah, you are. It's a joke. Completely joke. I had not heard that term since Bob Knight.
Yep.
The days of Bob Knight in Indiana. Zero tolerance policy. I swear. And I was reading about him yesterday, and I'm like, whoa, what? They're gonna bring out the Bob Knight? But with good reason. You swing at a coach on a court, yeah, you probably deserve to be under a no tolerance policy. That wasn't just that. But apparently there was an altercation between Juwan Howard and I don't know that it was an assistant or an athletic trainer. But either way, apparently,
I believe it's been. I read some of this the other day. It was, and again, none of this has been confirmed. I don't believe, but it was been said to have been an athletic trainer.
There's no doubt that it happened. There's too much out there, and so. But the thing is, Juwan Howard traveled with the team on their latest game, and the athletic trainer did not. It was actually the longtime strength and conditioning coach, John Sanderson. A program source confirmed a confrontation that involved Howard and longtime strength and conditioning coach John Sanderson occurred during a practice late last week. However, their altercation wasn't physical, despite several reports on social media suggesting otherwise. It's unclear what led to the confrontation or what it was about. This is from The Athletic. According to Brendan Quinn, the incident is going through a university review process. Of course, they'll find a way for it not to be a deal, but Sanderson did not travel with the team to Iowa for Michigan's game, and he did not return a call for comment. According to a university source, Sanderson currently remains part of the program. So we'll see who did what. It's odds all hell broke loose after this stuff, after Howard coached a game, a win no less. I don't know what that's saying. But Howard was at the game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. He's been in a lot of scrapes, man. He's been in a lot of scrapes. As a matter of fact, he's getting up into the Bob Knight territory of getting into scrapes with people without the winning.
But I guess that's what happens when you get on a no tolerance policy, or I guess that proves that you are getting into that echelon, right?
Well, there's some truth to that. There is definitely some truth to that. But we'll see. We'll see how that one turns out. Let's see. In regards to Indiana basketball, is the program on an upward trajectory? Do you feel like it's on an upward trajectory? And by that, I mean it is climbing. It doesn't have to be climbing like a rocket, but is it even climbing right now? Or is it just kind of, what's the word? I didn't use the correct word yesterday. I said flatlined, and that was not right. But they're just kind of
stagnant.
They're plateaued. Thank you, Philip. They just, I see a plateau, and I can't predict the future this season, and I'm not trying to predict the future. I do not know. I do not ever pretend like I know what coaches know, what former players know. You will never hear me say that. Do I have opinions? Of course, and I will give them. But those are generally based upon discussions that I've had with these people, the things that I've been around to see, that I get to see. But 5 lefts. Oh, you better put some respect on his name. Juwan might slug me next time. You got that right, man. Well, he can't hear me. He's not listening. But Russell says that he heard from sources. Russell, what sources would you have? Because that would kind of be in the national news if that was the case. I've got to tell you, because people work way too hard to get that stuff. But getting back to what I was talking about, I look at, is the program growing? I know everyone gets swayed when you get great recruits in, and there have been some great recruits come in. I'm not disputing that. Jalen Hood-Schifino, obviously. Malik Renew, obviously. Mackenzie Mbako, obviously. Liam McNeely, but they're getting the same exact kind of recruits. And if Jalen Hood-Schifino's a one and done, and if I did fail to mention Kalel Ware. Let's say Kalel Ware is one and done. What good does that do you? You're not building a program. You need to have a program that has all the pieces it needs to have at the same time. And Five Less says he thinks the team will be more complete next season. Boy, that next season is a very, very popular word in Indiana basketball fandom. Next season. Next season. You know what we hear every season? Next season.
I'm going to go ahead and let me go and jump in here real quick.
No.
I do think, and again, the way that Indiana lost to Auburn was egregious. I won't deny that at all.
You mean how they lost to UConn?
Well, to both UConn and Auburn.
Exactly.
Auburn more recently. But I feel like a lot of people, at least so far, especially because we're still early into the season, are putting way too much stock into what happened in that game in particular. Everybody has bad games, and it probably won't be Indiana's last bad game.
But Indiana has a bad game against every prime-time, big-time opponent they have played for the last 3 seasons.
That's not true.
Minus
they beat North
Purdue.
Carolina last year. They beat Purdue twice last year.
North Carolina was not good last year.
It doesn't matter. It was a perceived primetime atmosphere, and they did what they needed to do.
It cannot be perceived. It has to be a real. I'm talking about games.
It was real, but it was a primetime atmosphere. What happens at the end of the season is different. At the time, it was a big game.
Take the word atmosphere out. I'm talking about primetime opponents who are legit primetime opponents. Kansas is number 2. Arizona, these teams that are actually good, not the teams that are perceived to be good going into the game. North Carolina ended up not being very good, and that just turned out to be the case. But they're
going to have another shot at it this weekend too when they face Kansas, and we'll obviously see how that works out. I do think they'll play well. I don't know if they're going to win, but here's the thing. Kansas, I think so far, even though they're one of the elite teams in college basketball this year, I think Hunter Dickinson, as good as he is, I think he kind of weighs down what Kansas really likes to do because of his stature, and I think that's going to help Indiana in some way, and the fact they're playing in Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Again, I don't know if it'll be enough for them to actually win this game, but I think a lot of people are very low on Indiana, as they should be, based on what you saw. But don't be surprised, especially after a week's worth of rest, if you see a different kind of energy, simply because, one, they're playing at home, they're playing Kansas, and they're familiar with how to play against Hunter Dickinson. And I think it could be a good opportunity for
him. Andy says, in general, he may have had a previous comment that I missed, but says we knew it was going to be once there was such a whiff in guard and wing portal recruiting. There is the rub. The inability to have guards in the stable to play. Jalen Hood-Schifino, that he may not have been, that's kind of a fly in the ointment because I'm not sure that many people expected him to be a one and done. And you know what? He wouldn't have been had it not been for the injury to Xavier Johnson, forcing him into play and getting to play and getting to show off his wares and get better as the season went along. That he became a one and done during the season. That's a little bit to it. But they tried to land a guard because they knew they needed one and couldn't get it done. That's just saying that's a bad sign. Guard play is what is hurting the team. Guard play is what is you have to have good guard play. There's somebody that responds after the show that can't listen live, I think, and was going on and on about how Gabe Cupps is perfect because he doesn't need to score. He as long as he's facilitating. Baloney. Your point guard has to score. He has to be able to score. He has to be a threat. Do you think Xavier Johnson isn't a threat to score? You think Xavier Johnson isn't a threat to get to the basket? Absolutely he is. So Indiana doesn't have that right now, although Gabe Cupps had a good outing against Auburn. So that's a positive sign there. But they weren't able to put together the inside-outside game there. But they don't have – is this an NCAA tournament team? I mean, we've got a long way to go. The Big Ten is down. I think that helps. But is this an NCAA tournament team? Northwestern has veteran guards. Purdue, as I've said before, it's what hurt Purdue last year. Guards. Their guards were young, and it held them back. So, again, I asked the question, is the program on an upward trajectory? And I don't mean barely. Is it better than Archie or Lil Rhodey? Of course it is. But I think John could be the coach, and it would be better than it was when Lil Rhodey was the coach was there. I just don't know. It's been 3 years. And today's athletic game, it doesn't take 3 years. You've got the transfer portal. You've got NIL. And Indiana is a school that has NIL for days when it comes to basketball. I think partly is they go all in on certain guys, and it kind of just leaves others out in the cold. But again, I do not complain or do not think I know it all. I do absolutely don't. I am not a coach at the D1 level. Did not play at the D1 level. So I have people on to talk to about that stuff, like Todd Leary, like all the other guys. But I say things without my intention is not to anger anybody, but it's certainly I think it's a worthy question to be asked. And Five Left's asking, did Archie ever recruit 2 5-star recruits? Well, what good does it do if it doesn't do anything on the floor? He had Romeo Langford. Yes, he did. Romeo Langford and Christian Lander.
And I feel like a lot of people forget that Trace was Archie Miller's player too.
Bingo. What good did it do on the floor?
Right.
What good is it doing on the floor? If you listen to Kurt Signetti in his opening press conference, he said, I don't care what a number. He goes, who the hell are these stars? He goes, who puts these stars on these guys? It's not coaches. It's not coaches that do that. But we've got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks a lot for being with us. In the next hour, Chronic Hoosier and Kalen DeBoer, the head coach of the Washington Huskies, joins us. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Mike reached out. He said he told you last week that he's coming on tomorrow instead of today.
I'm sure he did. That's why.
Yeah.
I wish those guys would tell you, because I'm like,
they usually tell both of us, but it might have been because I wasn't here.
Telling me is like telling a ghost.
A wall.
A wall. A wall. A wall. Five Lefts? Did any see? I'm
going to say this is. I'll shut up after I made this last comment. If they beat Kansas this weekend, nobody's going to give a fuck what happened against Auburn. Excuse my language.
No, they won't.
I do agree with you. Guard play is a problem, but I don't think the guards they have are inept. They're just inconsistent. And it doesn't help that Xavier's injured. But here's my other problem with Xavier. I don't think Xavier should be If Xavier Johnson's your starting point guard, I think that says a lot. And again, I know he's been Indiana's starter in the past, but I don't think he's not the kind of caliber starting point guard you want at Indiana per se. He could be a good starting point guard elsewhere, but I don't think he's. It's a shame that he's the long-term answer.
What does that say about the rest of your guards?
Well, that's Indiana's guards are full of guys who would be great six men. Really, all of them. Trey Galloway, Gabe Cupps, every single one of them. CJ Gunn. Now he's younger, but I mean, same. I guess Gabe and CJ are both pretty young, but all of Indiana's guards would be great six men at this current point in time. But a lot of them, especially the young ones, Gabe Cupps will be a great starter in the future. And maybe CJ Gunn can be more consistent and be someone worthy of starting. But again, right now, all of them just have they're all the caliber of being good six men, I feel like.
And that is a great point, because guess what? You can't win at a high level with six men. I'm just saying.
It's weird. Like not all of Indiana's big guys, but a few of Indiana's big guys are all Big Ten caliber, I feel like, which is the exact opposite. It's a weird balance, I guess.
That is my exact answer, Andy. Of course, Woody's a better coach than Lil Rhodey. Lil Rhodey couldn't coach his way out of wet paper sack, but everything that is going on is similar. Same exact lineup, same exact. I need to say this.
Here we go. Yep, here we go.
30919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. It's December 11th. Don't forget this Saturday, after Indiana takes on the Kansas Jayhawks at not Memorial Stadium, but the Simon Scott Assembly Hall here in Bloomington. After the game with Todd Leary and about Indiana basketball post-game show happens at Hoosier Hanks East over off of College Mall Road. If you do not have tickets to the game, sneak out there because it's going to be packed. So you can get out there for the game, watch it with Todd, and then we'll be there doing the post-game show afterwards. Prizes to be given out. We'll have some ISB merch there to give away, actually. And yes, I still owe the winners of the college pick'em, and I even have I forget his name now, from the NCAA, but we've gotten our stuff in now, so that's good. Continuing just a little bit the conversation, Five Lefts referred to the thought that I was saying that Woody is no better than Archie. No, but my answer would be what Andy says, but the floor struggles are the same. Let me ask you this. Has Indiana's shooting woes been answered? Crickets, because the answer is no. They still cannot shoot the ball. Number two, they cannot defend the three-point shot. We're the baloney. Wright State, Army, Florida Gulf Coast, seriously? Blistered Indiana from behind the arc. Blistered. As did Auburn. So that's a pretty good sample size. The offense, which I don't understand. It looks a little like it did under Archie. It looks like it has for the last 3 years. Run around, do the little Harlem Globetrotter thing at the top out on the perimeter, try to pound it inside. And if that doesn't work, hope that somebody to throw it to outside, or Trey Galloway driving to the basket to at the last second look up to see if he can find someone. I do not see an offensive flow where they're looking to get 3-point shots. Not that they're a 15-point 3-point shooting team a game. You don't have to be, but you have to have a mix. You have to have a variety. If you don't, you're going to do what Auburn did. They shut down Kalel Ware. Indiana hit their first 4 3-pointers. Auburn still didn't care. I don't see a great change offensively. I don't care of how many 5 stars are brought in. At the end of the day, the measure is wins and losses. So, Larry thinks that Gabe Cupps at point, Xavier Johnson at the 2 might be worth the try. You know what? I'm not against that once he's healthy, because that's another place where Indiana is devoid. That number 2 spot should be a valued scoring position, the valued shooting position. You should be getting probably most of your 3-point shots from that spot. But that's not. Let's see. I want to miss. No, I don't believe in starting to develop for the future, because Philip says start gunning Cups to develop for the future. That means you've given up on the now. You can't give up on the now. The goal is you have to develop them while you are going through.
I tell you, I'm starting to agree with you in terms. It does seem like a lot of fans are just always like, "Well, let's just go ahead and build for next season. Let's go ahead and look ahead to next season. Let's go to next season."
Well, because a lot of times that's all that's left. You see, you're like, "Oh wow."
Well, what is it? I mean, we're barely. Well, after the Kansas, Indiana will be a third of the way through their schedule. I think a lot of people also haven't realized Indiana's 2-0 in conference play. You went on the road and beat Michigan. Yes, it's a kind of a down Michigan team, but you opened conference play with 2 wins. I don't think anybody else in the Big Ten, maybe, and I know Purdue hasn't because they lost Northwestern, but Indiana's one of the only teams who started their conference slate 2-0. Now, do I think they're going to win the Big Ten? Probably not, but they have a good chance in finishing in the top 5. It's a down Big Ten league. And yes, it's not good for the overall look of the conference, but Indiana has a good shot to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten, even if it's not one of the better Indiana teams in recent memory. So, again, we're putting a lot of stock into what's happened in the early going. I do think a little bit of patience will do some fans some good. But again, I understand the complaints. I do. But there is a lot of season left, and Indiana is 2-0 in the conference, which is one of the more important things they've done so far on the schedule, I feel like.
5 asked, how are they the same? They've been to 2 tournaments, yet we've only lost 1 game due to poor 3-point defense. Yeah, only lost 1 game. That's because Wright State and Army and Florida Gulf Coast had nobody to answer in the middle, because those games were very close. But anyway, I think that they'll do fine in the Big Ten because the Big Ten is down, but that's not good. Doing fine because your competition is
well,
less.
what is fine? What is fine? Like, what are you talking record-wise?
Competing against the elite, competing against Arizona, competing against
that's
Kansas,
not what I'm asking. You're
competing
talking about
against
you say looking fine in the Big Ten is okay, but not good enough. What in your mind is looking fine? I guess is what, being 5th, I guess.
You're using the Big Ten. I don't care about
that's
the
what
Big
you
Ten.
said. Maybe you misspoke, but you said being fine in the Big Ten is okay, but your main point is about looking good against the better out of conference opponents.
Yes, because if you have a league that is a down league and you have an okay run in that okay league, what the hell does that prove? You're okay. Is okay. You know what? I go back to Kurt Signetti. That's an exact quote he had. He goes, okay or average is okay, but not in my business. Okay, average is okay for a lot of people, but not in Indiana basketball. Just being okay is not good enough. And it used to take 3-4 years to build a program, no matter if we're talking football, basketball, whatever. No longer does. You have the transfer portal. You have NIL. You have resources. Nobody has better resources than Indiana. Nobody has more NIL regarding basketball. Well, very, very little. Kansas, maybe. More NIL money than Indiana. And fan support. Nobody has better fan support. Indiana has outdrawn UConn at Madison Square Garden. They outdrew Arizona and Las Vegas. They had the largest ever visiting fan contingent to Fog Allen Fieldhouse last year. They outdrew Auburn in Atlanta. You've got the fan support. They've got everything needed. Why is this program still churning? Yeah, they made the tournament. Well, go look who else made the tournament last year. A lot of teams that do not have the tradition and the name Indiana on their jersey. Making the tournament's nice. Is this a tournament team this year? Maybe only because the Big Ten is down. Is this a team, and if they make the tournament, is this a team that you see going to the second weekend?
To be fair, I think a lot of teams can stumble their way into the second weekend if the circumstances are correct. So it really depends on the setup of what your bracket looks like in the NCAA tournament. I think they could, but again, I don't. Should they be able to? I don't know. I think it's too early to tell.
Your number 2 guard is shooting 50% from the free throw line.
Who are you referring to, by the way?
Well,
Galloway?
Whoever the number 2 guard for Indiana is.
That's a surprising stat line. I did not know that.
Well, again.
Hey, here's what I think. This will be the last thing I say, and I'll shut my mouth, because I think we got Chronic Hoosier coming up in a second. I think for Indiana to be successful this year, whatever that looks like, obviously we already know Khalil Ware and Malik Renew are going to be the consistent pieces. If you can find a third guy, and it doesn't have to be the same third guy, but if Indiana is going to win a majority of their games, they need to have somebody along with Malik Renew and Khalil Ware be that third guy on a night. And I think it needs to be Mackenzie Mbako. It can be someone like Xavier Johnson or Trey Galloway or even somebody off the bench. But there's got to be a third guy show up each night to be that third threat, because you know you're going to have the other two. But Indiana needs someone who's more versatile to be a consistent threat. For them to be a more diverse team.
And that is something that has been said for longer than this season. That's my point.
But I do think they're getting there. I do think, and I could be very wrong about this.
Where are they getting? Getting where?
What?
Where are they getting? I don't understand.
I don't know what you're asking me.
Where are they? You said they're getting there. Where are they getting? Where?
I think Mackenzie Mbako has showed enough flashes. And again, he's only a freshman, but he was a McDonald's All-American. I think Mackenzie Mbako, I bet once we hit the middle of the Big Ten season, if he hasn't hit a stride where he is one of the more consistent players for this team, I do think that's a problem for somebody who is with as much upside as he has. But I think he's going to end up being that third piece that makes this team better in the long run. But we'll see.
He has to be the third piece because he's the best option at being that they have, with the exception of potentially Xavier Johnson if he's able to come back completely healthy. And if he's not able to come back completely healthy, this team is possibly in for a longer season than people think. And part of that goes to the fact you've got Xavier Johnson out, you've got Ja'Kai Newton out, and you've also are lacking a scholarship that's sitting there empty because they could not land the guard that the shooter that they desperately need. So you've got 3 spots that are sitting open.
I do gotta say, it is a shame that they weren't even able to find, like, even after you swung and missed at, Connect and the guy from Harvard, I'm forgetting his name right now. Even after you missed at those guys, why couldn't you reach down at the G5 level and just find somebody who was known as a good shooter and give him a chance, like fill the scholarship? Why leave it open? And I know Archie Miller did the same thing, and that is, I guess, the one thing that Woodson and Archie have in common is they leave scholarships open for some reason. But especially when you have that, and what you just laid out is a great example. You have 2 guys hurt, one of them a guard, one of them a wing. Is Ja'Kai Newton a pure guard, or is he more of a wing? Is he more of a wing?
I'd say he's a wing. He could.
Either way, you're already missing 2 guys to injury, and your third guy and your third quote unquote missing person is someone who's not even on the roster. So you're down 3 guys who could be that kind of a shooter for you in a sense, or a scorer at least. So I do understand that.
We've got to take a break, the boss says. When we come back, we should have Chronic Hoosier with us. And then after that, Kalen DeBoer. Looking forward to it. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. We may not even have Chronic Hoosier. Usually he's popped in by now.
Man, it's gonna be
I'm having fun talking basketball, but why can't people? I know Mike DeCourcy ended up telling me, but I wish people would just tell me if they're going to be here or not. I don't know what you said. That's true. We are going to have Kalen DeBoer. Excuse me. I appreciate the compliments, Russell and 5 Lefts. They're kissing up. I'm the one just giving them the thanks.
They're kissing up to anybody who disagrees with me.
Oh, here's Chronic. Morning, Chronic.
Hey, I am so sorry I'm running late. I just jumped out of a meeting.
No, you're good. We're in commercial right now. You're right on time.
You already have DeBoer on?
No, he's not yet. For you.
Nice.
I'm getting railed right now on football or basketball.
You're not getting railed. People are just disagreeing with. They think the Jim's expectations.
Well, it's not about expectations.
I feel like that's kind of what the discussion's been about: expectations versus how good your team actually is.
Here's the thing: is most national analysts saw this team for who they were. They did. Exactly. I'm one of them that didn't want to believe it. But I think we look a whole lot closer to what the preseason prognostications were than what we thought we would be, perhaps.
And I think it goes directly to guard play.
1,000%.
Nobody wants to.
Comment I made, Chronic. I'm curious because Jim actually agreed with this. Is that Indiana just has a bunch of guards who would be great 6th men?
No. Indiana has one guard that would be a great 6th man and has other guards who should be further down the bench or not ready to play for another 2 years of development.
Okay.
At this level. I think we have, since Yogi left, we have put a lot of kids, short of Romeo, we put a lot of kids in position that they weren't ready for because we had no other options. And I think that explains a lot of the attrition at the guard spot.
And especially with an open Scully sitting there.
Yep.
All right, here we go, guys.
out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, December 11th, of course. Chronic Hoosier joins us now, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. How's it going, Chronic?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back, Jim.
Absolutely. It is always a pleasure. Chronic is always he tells it like it is. He just does it in a calmer way than I do, and a much less bitter. It has a little more saccharine on it, I guess I would say. But we were talking previously. I've just been saying that, IU basketball, I think it is almost plateaued. I'm not seeing an upward trajectory, and everybody keeps talking about Archie didn't bring this guy in. I don't care who you bring in. I don't care what star they are. If you do not have a team that cannot compete with the top 10, you're not going upwards. You're just not treading water, and this team is one that just scares me. I know the Big Ten is down this year, so that should help them. But I don't know that this team, if this was not a down year for the Big Ten, I don't think this team makes the tournament, and we're not sure that they do this year yet.
No, that was just the topic of conversation going on in one of my group chats here just this morning. Is the likelihood that we have and don't get me, we've still got a big game this weekend. Stakes are massive this weekend. In addition to being one of the marquee home non-conference matchups this year, the marquee home non-conference matchup, just from a tournament resume standpoint, Indiana's in a bad spot right now, and unlike years past, I don't think a respectable showing in the Big Ten is likely going to be enough to buoy their hopes come Selection Sunday, because the Big Ten looks like hot garbage right now, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case or the perspective in the beginning of March, but as things look here in mid-December, this looks to be one of the more down years that we've seen in recent history in the Big Ten. So, assuming a middle of the pack showing, this very well could be a 4 or 5 bid league, possibly lower. I don't know yet. But it's not the type of year where you can expect that, if you finish 5th or 6th in the conference, you should be safely in, because quite frankly, Indiana doesn't really have, Michigan, I suppose, is the best win on the schedule, on the road. Short of that, and I don't even know how well that's going to hold up over time, quite frankly. But as good as that may or may not look in March, you can't ignore the fact that the 2 losses the Hoosiers have on the books right now are ugly losses, just completely non-competitive losses in neutral court environments. And it's, I think perhaps what maybe colors my feelings on that even more is it's a very familiar taste to see these marquee games where Indiana just absolutely gets depanced on national television. We saw it at the Fog last year, Arizona at the MGM Grand. I guess that even overlooks Miami in the tournament last year, St. Mary's in the tournament in 22 out in the Rose Garden, Texas at the North Carolina Maui Invitational. You can go all the way back for a while now. The last 2 trips to Cameron, Indiana has just not looked fit for fighting against some of the better competition in the country. So as much as we love to hang our hats on being able to slug it out in the Big Ten, with the exception of that North Carolina game at home, was that last year or year before last? Indiana just really has laid an egg every time they've put in one of these positions to really prove that they are ascendant again, that they belong back in the national conversation. Despite what the Big Ten results show, yet another showing where Indiana was totally non-competitive for the better part of the contest. After the first 10 minutes or so, it was a stinker. And we have now established a long track record of stinkers. And what I think at least is probably the same reason as many of the past is Indiana's guard play just isn't on par. It's not up to snuff with what you're seeing across the country, and it's been a glaring issue for some time, and it still fails to be adequately addressed at this point.
Yeah, and that has been a problem that has just gone on and on. And someone mentioned earlier that the Big Ten is down and Indiana was supposed to be down. No, they weren't. They're supposed to be better. You're supposed to be progressing. You're supposed to be getting better each year and getting closer to returning to where you want to. This is not getting closer. And not only is it guard play that they're devoid of, it's just pure shooting. And it boggles my mind that this has been such an issue for so long. It's go get some damn shooters, but yet the focus continues to be on other types of players, and it's not working. That, and I hate to bring it up because it's everybody's favorite topic, but the rotation issue. It's not the rotation itself. It's the sheer fact that after the game in the press conference, he was asked about it, and he seemed a little befuddled. He's like, you see, I've done the same thing for 3 years. Exactly. And Indiana's been the same for 3 years. Just because it's the 8-minute mark, I don't care. You don't have to take 3 guys out, especially if one of them's hot, or you can't take Kalel Ware and Mackenzie Mbako off the floor at the same time. You're telling me these guys can't go 10 minutes and rotate and stagger that? I mean, who the hell else does that? Nobody. And it is not working. And he seems befuddled by the fact that he's even being asked about it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that my phone just blows up the entire game when we do this, because you see them get out to a big run. And credit to the coaching staff. I've said this for years. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, till I'm in the grave. What you see in that first quarter is really indicative of the game planning going into the matchup. That's when you're closest to your script. It's what happens when you have to get off script, when you get off schedule, that things tend to go sideways. And Indiana came out, looked really sharp, really focused, really well prepared. And then we got into the sub patterns. And it's one of those things where I've heard Woody speak on it. I've heard him explain it. The difference between a college roster and an NBA roster, where you're probably more prone to see this platoon subbing, is the talent difference from the fifth guy on the roster to the 10th guy isn't really that great. Don't get me wrong. There's a difference between role guys, roster players, and superstars in the league, but the baseline skill level isn't that far off. These are the best basketball players in the world. The difference in Indiana's fifth man and its 8th, 9th, 10th is pretty vast. And it's one of those things, I was thinking back, when was it Calipari was all high on his future NBA roster, and he was fully committed to the platoons. And with a roster that was legitimately chock full of future NBA guys, it just didn't work. It did not work. And it's virtually never worked, at least anywhere that I can remember seeing. And it's one of those things that, you can look at the score and the time, and then look at the sub patterns and the absence of the starters, and just see where the game turns. It's pretty materially obvious to the casual observer, to those that are really drilling into the analytics. This team just doesn't have the firepower to pull that off, and that's no knock on the guys, but I'm still at a loss for any reason why there should ever be a point where you have Mbako, Ware, and Renew all on the bench together, unless there's fouls or injuries or something else. And he's expressed that, he's trying to keep them fresh. That's fine, but it's not like they all share the same power meter. Every guy kind of has a different battery level on any given night, and it's proven problematic, and it's proven to be a pretty surefire way to see momentum swing away from IU. And unlike the NBA, it's a whole lot harder in college to come back from double-digit deficits. You see it on a nightly basis in the NBA. I don't care what the score is until you're, a decent way through the fourth quarter before you really determine whether or not you got a contest. In the college game, when you go and you see a 19-1 or 19-2 point swing, and you're not calling a timeout, you may get away with that with higher level players, but oftentimes in the college game, that ship's already sailed on you before you even realize it's left the dock. It's gone, and it's not coming back. And the unfortunate part is you look at the body language, and it sure seems like the players know it. They certainly seem to play like the contest is out of hand. So being able to identify that, being able to arrest that before it gets too far gone, and I've heard the counters arguments that what else is he going to do? Who else is he going to put in? It's valid. It's very valid. There's only so much depth, and there's only so much talent on that roster, and guys do need rest. But what we're doing ain't it. At least not against. And I'm not even trying to. Don't get me wrong. Auburn played a heck of a game. Auburn's not that great of a team.
They just got beat by App State the game before.
Yeah. Auburn's a good team. They're not a great team. They played out of their minds against Indiana, but they were certainly fit for the fight. And I don't think you can say the same for the Hoosiers. They pretty much checked out there not long after the game started to slip away from them and never really punched back. And I think more than anything, seeing what this team's ceiling has been at times, or at least the potential they've shown, just a real lack of effort in even trying to scratch that surface.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I don't know if it's that Woody's okay with it, or it was because he knew that it was kind of a screw up. But in the post-game presser, being asked about it, and again, he referred to, I do it at the same time. I do the same thing every time. Well, guess what? It hasn't worked a lot of the time, number one. But number two, they had a 22-10 lead, and then that's when the substitutions comes in, and he goes, hey, when I put all my starters back in, we were tied 26-26, so we were all good. No, you weren't. You gave up a 12-point lead. So I think that he thinks that as long as they tread water, the subs, that everything's okay. And it's not okay, because building that lead is part of your chance to win the game and sustaining that lead.
It's not just building it. It's keeping the other team in a position of disadvantage, both tactically as well as psychologically. And what you often see, and you see it all the time with shooters, you let a guy believe he's getting hot, and he's going to start playing like he's hot. When you can't defend, guys gain confidence. And the flip side of that coin is your guys tend to lose confidence, and it bears out in the score line. So, when you basically surrender all the momentum there, they're going to come back, and you're now looking at a different team. They're no longer dejected. They're no longer against the ropes. They believe they're the better team now, because they've withstood your best punch, and they punched back, and they've seen just how soft your jaw is, and that breeds more confidence, and that breeds more more the negative body language that you see on the floor. It's just not good. And the longer we go in, and the more this pattern repeats, the more that becomes reality for everyone. We're reaching the point now, and I'm one of those guys that will spend most of November saying, conditioning everything. There's a caveat. It's still early. Well, when you reach this point in the season, your statistical profile is pretty representative of who you in fact really are.
Yeah, and defensively, when you give up 48 points to two guys, it's not going to be a good day.
Yeah, no, straight up. And we see this time and time again. Guys that go off for career days, season highs. It happens all too often. And usually it starts with them getting a couple uncontested looks, and they see him go in, and now that bucket looks 3 times bigger, and it just rolls for the rest of the night. And conversely, we don't seem to have that happen all that often on our side. And that's problematic because you end up with a bunch of guys hunting shots. You end up with a bunch of guys that end up passing open shots because they just don't have the juice, and they're not getting the opportunity to build that up. And it's one of those where, we talk about leadership. It's demonstrated. It's not a badge that you just put on somebody or a C that gets sewn onto the jersey. It's through play. And, these guys continue to look across the floor at who's going to step up. And, short of the post players, I think they're still looking around trying to figure out who's going to step up.
Well, and that begs the question, like when Indiana had Miller Kopp and he was supposed to be the answer. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe it seriously just was the offense that didn't allow him to get the shots that he needed to put up.
And
because we're not seeing those shots getting put up by. It's like the opponents that Indiana plays. Man, they don't have a problem putting up a shot from 3-4 feet behind the arc at all.
No, unquestionably, and that's one of those things too, where Indiana hasn't. They haven't had the opportunity to really let those guys grow, nurture, and develop. And I think most would agree that Miller was a whole lot more effective his second year here than he was his first. I think part of it is you have a program that's been that's had a lot of attrition, both in players, but as well as in staff and styles and philosophies and systems, and that's been problematic. I'm getting highlights from my best friend. Watching Brownstown's Jack Benner.
Oh, yeah.
Over in Brownstown. Grew up right down the road from where I was born. He used to play against his dad. Hell of a ball player. He's a kid that I don't even know why you sniffed. Shooting guard, 6'5". He's committed to Purdue. And he's going to go up to West Lafayette and probably play extraordinarily sparingly the first couple of years because they can afford to. Because they know exactly what type of player he is. They know exactly how he's going to fit in their system. And they have a depth that's going to allow him time to grow, mature, develop, and step into a role where he'll probably be a pretty good contributor for him, on both sides of the ball. But at a time when his maturation process is ready for the call up. What you see at Indiana, we are yet again banking on whether it's CJ Gunn or whether it's Tamar Bates or whether it's Armand Franklin. How many times have we looked at a sophomore and said, at the beginning of the season, he's really poised for a breakout year. This is his time to shine. You're talking about a sophomore. You're talking about a guy that doesn't have the reps, that doesn't have the physique, that doesn't have the experience and the fortitude that these 4th, 5th year guys he's going up against night after night are. These are guys that are still learning the intricacies of the system in the college game, and yet you're asking them to step in and play starting or major contributing minutes in Power 5 basketball against teams that have allowed their guys to age and to grow and develop within their systems. We're constantly now having to search in the transfer portal or putting young guys into positions probably ahead of schedule, and it's tough, and it's a high risk situation for them because, quite honestly, you can fry these guys out, you can destroy confidence, you can destroy chemistry. And it's not to say they can't grow as well, but the degree of difficulty is so much higher, and yet we keep turning into the same situation over and over and over again. And for the successes they've had on the recruiting trail, it's been a glaring gap in the roster composition since Woody stepped foot back in town, and it's one that remains unfilled to this day. Don't get me wrong, I cannot wait for Liam McNeely and his shooting prowess to show up on campus, but who else is going to be able to chuck it with him?
Well,
and are you really expecting that freshman to step in and just now all of a sudden he's the guy in the Big Ten against the schedule that Woodson's lining up for him? I just don't think it's realistic, and I don't think it's constructive, quite frankly.
We'll certainly find out. Sorry to cut you off short, but we got to get to a break for Kalen DeBoer joining us next. But I'm sure we'll continue this next week after Indiana takes on Kansas this weekend. Chronic, cannot thank you enough as always, man.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Take care.
Appreciate you. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Washington, set to join us. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. All right. Let him know we are ready for him.
You or me? I just sent him a text.
You. I don't have his phone number or anything.
Yeah. He's late. He's late for a very important date.
And then remember, you'll take this to about 33, not 30.
So basically, Chronic Hoosier agreed with me. Just saying, he's the voice of reason.
I don't think I ever said anything you.
Oh, I wasn't talking about you.
Oh. The only thing I've been trying to communicate today is let's just step back. It's early still. And I guess early is
there's
subjective.
a link in your email.
If he doesn't have it, I'm gonna send you a text with it to send to him because I did email it to him. And maybe tell him to check his spam. I'm gonna text
if you don't see it.
And I'm texting the number or the link to you right now, Jim, in case you need to forward it over to him.
Well, that would make it difficult. Oh, you mean email it over to him?
I mean, you could if you needed to.
Well, it doesn't do any good to text it over.
Well, if he's going to use his phone, I don't know what he's planning on doing.
He usually does it from his office. It's pretty early out there.
I did just text it to you if you want. I mean, you could send that the link to his email if you want. Again.
I wish we could stretch this out. Daggone it.
I mean, you're going to have 15 minutes with him.
Yeah, I know, but I guess I should have reminded him he does a lot on his plate. So even though he was on not that long ago,
I'll double check and make sure I have the right email. We still got a couple seconds, but I did send. Let me see who I sent.
Hold on, don't say it out loud.
Well, okay. I wouldn't.
Do you have it at
it's a uw.edu email.
Yep.
And it's 5 letters before that.
Yep.
Yeah, I sent it to the right email. All right, here we go. 10 seconds.
First letter D, last letter K.
Yep. All right, here we go.
040, the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Kalen DeBoer trying to get set up to join us. He's about 5 minutes away, John. So unless you want me to call him.
We can. Here's one thing: if you want to extend the interview, we can always, you know what? Just do it your way, and I'll edit it in post. But again, you can't take it too long because that just makes my life more difficult after the fact.
Just tell me how long I can go to.
Take him, and this is in recording time. Take it an extra 5 or 6 minutes if you want to. From our exit time.
So 33 plus 5 or 6 is 39.
Take it to like 40. if you want to.
All right. I love
When
it.
he pops on.
Love it, baby. I'm digging it. Oh, what's that phrase I'm trying to think of from
Now, again, I want to go and say this preemptively. If you're on the radio side of things, I apologize. You won't hear the entirety of this upcoming interview with Kalen DeBoer. But if you do want to catch the full interview, check us out on YouTube. I'll say that much.
Yeah, and make sure you're a subscriber, by the way, for those of you who can't catch it on time for anything on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. If it's something that you miss, you can always go to Indiana Sports Beat Radio at YouTube at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. That's all you got to find. And you can see all the previous episodes. There's tons of interviews that people love to go back and listen to that they didn't hear or didn't see before, with former players, former coaches, whomever it might be. So looking forward to that. And I'd like to have be dropped off every day. That would be kind of nice. And yeah, right now though, the discussion is about, and I don't want to lay this on him, Indiana strength and conditioning. When that first happened, there seemed to be a lot of injuries during Archie's tenure with that. Now, I think that is because Archie probably practiced too hard, too long with the kids, because in talking to Todd Leary, once they get to Big Ten season, he said they barely practiced. He said they watched a crap ton of film, but they didn't practice that much. So, but Coach Kalen DeBoer of the college football playoff bound Washington Huskies joining us now from his office. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, but not as good as you. Congratulations, first of all, on so much national coach of the year. That's got to be just beyond your wildest imagination on how fast everything has gone for you. I mean, what is this, your fourth year as a head coach? Fifth?
Yeah, four here, kind of on the second run. I was 5 years at Sioux Falls, 4 years here, 2 at Fresno, and here 2 at Washington. But been an awesome journey. All 4 of these years, and something different each and every year. And obviously this is a special season for these guys, and we've got an amazing staff, and these type of awards and this type of success doesn't come about with everyone just pulling their own weight and going above and beyond, and that includes the players who just have continued to make plays, and it's been a fun ride here this year for sure.
Well, Indiana, of course, just named a new head coach in Kurt Cignetti, and one of the things that I had sent out, but right before they hired, I said, the more I looked at his resume, it had similarities to someone named Kalen DeBoer. The guy won everywhere he went, and that's not at the level you did, but you have won everywhere you've been, and that just means so much. Now you're at Washington, and you have them in the college football playoffs. You had a Heisman candidate quarterback that you've tutored for multiple times. That just all of that in itself has to be an incredible reward.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's all about providing these experiences for these guys, these players. If you keep the main thing, and it's just understanding how awesome sports is, how awesome college athletics is, and enjoying the moments that come with it. And trying to keep the main thing for the coaching staff, our guys, have perspective on where this sits, and just these memories and these relationships are things that are going to last a lifetime. So there's a lot more to it. I get it. Winning is critical in this business. You need to win, and all that comes with it. But it's pretty, it's a pretty enjoyable moment right now that we're in. And we certainly are taking the approach that we're not done yet. We've said we haven't come this far to just come this far. And so the guys are very determined to make the next step, which we know is a big one, a great challenge against a great Texas team. But we're excited about that opportunity.
Kalen, you guys were the start of the season was incredible and quickly rose up to where you were, Michael, and his accolades as well. And then the Pac-12 was just tough this year, and people kind of, I'm not going to say they wrote you off, but they kind of started disrespecting, I think, Washington and the play. And I'm like, man, this is a tough conference and like a close game with Arizona. Well, 2 weeks later, Arizona's ranked because they played 5 ranked teams in a row. I'm like, you don't get it. I go, that's a tough league, man. And you guys were able to navigate the waters and to go undefeated. And even though I know you've done that a lot of times at the lower level at Sioux Falls and whatnot, to do it at this level in the Pac-12 this season, that is spectacular.
Yeah, there's a lot to that, what you just said. I think when in regards to the Pac-12, I think there were 8 different teams that were ranked in the top 25. Like you said, and Arizona is a good example of that win early in the year. We had a chance to go up by 21 in the fourth quarter. We fumbled on the 5. They went down and scored, made it a 7-point game, and it kind of was looked at like, that wasn't that great of a win. And now you look back on the season, you're like, that was a really good football team that we played. And they were still finding their own at the time too, and gaining momentum. But all the quarterbacks in the league that were driving these teams, it was well documented before the season. I do think there was a piece that was lost as the season was continuing, and even though we were able to maneuver through it and not, get bounced and have a loss, a lot of the other teams were beating up on each other. And as that happened, the rankings, I think, for each of those teams, for the most part, maybe other than us in Oregon, those teams fighting each other, certainly, when you get those losses, you drop in the rankings. But the schedule was extremely competitive. There is such a fine line between winning and losing the higher you get, and especially with more programs. And so it was a challenge. We looked at, the whole season, but when the schedule came out in November in particular, and we faced 3 of the 4 teams we faced were all ranked in the top 25, including, a number 10 Oregon State. And, that wasn't including a rival game against, the Cougs, which is always going to be tough. You might as well throw the records out there, and then having to come back again less than a week later, 6 days of prep on a short week, and beat Oregon again, for the second time. So 5 ranked teams, you alluded to Michael. You wouldn't do it without a quarterback that can make things happen. And he found ways to win. He had game-winning drives, responses when maybe there was some adversity, it might have been the second quarter or the third quarter, but those big swings that you always get in big games. He stepped up, our defense stepped up, picking up for each other. And that's what great teams do.
This is not a negative, but and I know you have to write a fine line on this, but what in the hell is wrong with the Pac-12 media? Did they not pay attention to the season this year? And how does Michael not win Offensive Player of the Year? He went 3-0 against Bo Nix, which Bo Nix is a terrific quarterback. He's awesome. Oregon's a great team, but he was 3-0 against Bo Nix, and they give it to Bo Nix. I was more than shocked to see that.
Are you talking about the all-conference team and the players that came with that?
Yeah.
Interesting enough, that's actually the coaches, that voted on.
Oh, that. Wow.
So yeah, I mean, that's and I think a lot of it might have to do with maybe if some votes being put in before the conference championship happened. I don't know that for sure, but there's a lot of other awards Michael's winning that he deservingly gets, and so
Maxwell, huge,
yeah, and so. Again, you go back and Michael has such a great perspective with everything he's been through in his college career. He has kept the main thing, and it's all been about our team winning. And yeah, I guess if you're second team all conference, but you're a first team all American and player of the year Maxwell Award, like the second team all conference thing, you just kind of don't worry about. It doesn't mean much anymore. But that's where his focus is at, and I don't think it with all the other awards that's come along, including the Heisman finalists and stuff. He's just kind of taken that all in stride. Our team loves him for it because he just, it just kind of brushes off his shoulder because it's all about the team first and foremost.
How much fun was it to go to New York for that, for the event, the Heisman Trophy presentation, to be around all those guys? My gosh, all the former Heisman Trophy winners, to be in that room. That had to be just an incredible, not only amount of fun, but just a great experience. You're just an old-time football guy, so I know even for you that had to be really special.
Yeah, I think you could go every single year, and I would think even those guys that have won it and been there year after year after year, I would think it's some type of, feeling that you have, understanding what the history is in that room and what the history is with the Heisman. Just such a gratifying time, knowing what Michael's been through, to be able to get to that spot, to get to that point, fight through the adversity, and just can come out on top. His story is so inspiring, I think, to so many people. And, it's just really cool seeing him thrive in the moment. I think he just handles everything that comes his way, like the public piece, especially, with grace, just the way he always puts other people first and has such a humble approach. He represents himself, his family, myself in this program, our community, everyone who's been a part of his life, including, the Indiana guys. I mean, there's special people there that, have played a role in him getting to the point where he's at. But, he's just a class act through and through.
Coming up, you are preparing for Texas in the national semifinal game, a team that kind of similar to you guys. They throw the ball a lot. You've got Quinn Ewers, another standout quarterback. What have you seen from the Longhorns this year? What are you looking for? What kind of game are you expecting?
Yeah, we've been on the road recruiting, but I know enough because we did play them in the Alamo Bowl last year, and there's some new faces in there, and I think they've definitely taken another step forward, a couple steps forward. I think we have too, but they are extremely physical. Their defense is just suffocating. The front is really good. Their interior guys, all of them working together, just making life really tough, getting pressure on the quarterback, stuff in the run. And then, like you said, offensively, with all the skill that they have around Quinn Ewers, it's just really impressive seeing what they've done. Coach Sark has done an amazing job building that program year after year after year. He was a head coach here, and I embrace him as being a guy that's helped us get to this point, even though it was maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago. But he's done a great job with the Texas program. And so we know we got our challenges, and we're ready, for it, and excited about all of that.
And going into the college football playoff, it's a little different because your staff you're scouting 3 different teams right now. I assume with Texas, yeah. And of course you've got to scout Alabama and Michigan as well.
Yeah, this last week our staff coaches were on the road, with recruiting, and there's some in and out. We got a couple practices this week, but our guys who break down the film, they've broke down all of the Texas that we need, and they've broke down all of the other 2, Michigan and Alabama as well. So their eyes are burning, and they've put a lot of work in, because you do. That quick turnaround from the semis to the championship, you don't get ahead of yourself, but that leg work can be done. It's not like you're game planning, but the leg work of the breakdown, throughout the course of the season is all part of kind of what you have during this big break that we have leading up to the Sugar Bowl.
So you're speaking a lot about recruiting, trying to mix that in with preparation. First of all, how hard is that to blend in recruiting with preparing for what is the biggest game of your career coming up?
It's really tricky. It's a balance act because you're really like trying to make sure everything with your current roster is intact. We have playoff run that we're trying to, really focus on. But you also, got to prepare for the future. And, even with guys that for sure are going to be moving on maybe to the NFL or graduating. But then there's some guys that are still kind of just like waiting. And, you're trying to plan ahead, maybe fill voids that are going to be left to someone who does leave for the NFL a year early. We have some of those situations. So it's a balancing act. It all comes down to communication, comes down to our staff and our players really understanding like, hey, we're trying to do what's best for them first, but we have to make sure we uphold the continuity of the program as well. So staff's doing a great job. Our players doing a great job. We have good people here. So that's comforting.
And now, is it harder recruiting, having to take that crown off as you walk through the prospective athletes' doors of being coach of the year and all of that stuff? And I'm kidding, because Kalen that's the least of how he is. He's one of the most humble people I've ever been around. But that's got to help recruiting when you're walking in someone's door, say, hey, yeah, we're getting ready to play for a national championship. That's a lot better than being 2-10 in the past season.
Yeah, it does. It certainly helps. And our guys who are committed are excited. The guys in the classes that we'll be recruiting in the future certainly have been watching all year. We've been on TV a lot, national TV. And of course, just the excitement, you can feel it in the program. You can see it through the guys and how they play. It's certainly a lot of momentum going right now for our program, and taking advantage of it is a big piece of that for our staff.
And for those that don't know, fans in Washington, I don't want to say they're nuts about their football, but they freaking love their football. I mean, that is a loud place. It sits. Does your stadium still sit right on the Puget Sound?
It sits on the Puget Sound, would be to the west. Our stadium sits and overlooks the Lake Washington. But yeah, it overlooks water, and our fans. It's an amazing environment. A lot of our alumni stick right around, 4 million, as far as greater Seattle area. And, it's, I think the city's a different level of buzz when the Huskies are winning, and that's what's happening right now. And so it's really cool seeing the excitement. We feel the support. The guys do a great job embracing all of that. So a lot of momentum there as well.
Will you still let the guys wear the purple jerseys once next year?
What do you mean, the purple jerseys?
Wasn't it the purple helmets? It was the purple helmets, I think.
Oh yeah, those are kind of once in a year type. I mean, you can wear them more if you want, but the strategy uniform, yeah. So, are you saying just because it was a close game?
Oh no, yeah, just because everybody was giving crap. Don't worry that. Don't wear that. I'm like, that does not make a difference. They don't know what color their helmets are. I promise you.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like Indiana basketball fans refusing to allow them to put names on the back. I'm like, man, they don't know what's on the back of their jerseys. They're playing. They got stuff to do. Next year, you come back to Bloomington to play. The first year that Washington is a part of the Big Ten, you're on Indiana's schedule. Has to be kind of wild to look. I know that's not something you're looking at right now, but that's just in and of itself. That's got to be something that's kind of wild and cool, maybe.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Indiana is a great, piece of my heart. I mean, my 2019 season there was a special year, and just embraced in such a great way, and just my family and I just enjoyed our time there. And so coming back and probably seeing some familiar faces and all that certainly will be something I'll be excited about. But rooting for always the places that have been a part of my journey, and Indiana being part of that journey, can't help but have a piece of rooting for the Hoosiers and the past seasons, and also the future.
And I know you're obviously completely focused on Washington football and the upcoming college football playoff, but has there been any thought in looking towards or planning as far as being a part of the Big Ten and how that's going to change as opposed to being in the Pac-12?
Well, I think there's some things. I mean, with recruiting and your footprint, we are certainly West Coast, with our footprint. But there are things. I think some things that can evolve and happen. We do have a lot of coaches that have a Midwest tie. William Inge is one of them, and Nick Sheridan is one of them. My offense coordinator's from Iowa. Our defensive coordinator, co-D coordinator, is from South Dakota, is a former teammate of mine. So a lot of guys that do have those Midwest ties and connections. We understand where our bread is buttered. That's still with West Coast, and why we've had success over the years here at Washington, going back decades. But I think some of those things will play it, and we'll evolve and adjust as time goes on.
Beware the jackrabbits and the bison, people. I'm telling you, those are some fun football programs if you haven't watched them in the Dakotas, which is wild. You would not think of the Dakotas as a football hotbed, but man, they always have some great football teams there. And of course, you were the coach of some of them.
Yeah. No, it's I think it gets overlooked. It's not a lot of metro areas there. So I think when you're looking at as a recruiter and the big programs trying to build pipelines and things like that, it's not always looked to. But those local schools, that's right where I grew up, is right in between those two schools you mentioned. Those guys take a lot of pride in that program. Those programs are really strong, and some good football players still that are playing at a high level at the FCS level there, for many, many years now.
Well, Kalen, I can't thank you enough for always being so kind to take time to be with us, even though I know you have a lot on your plate, especially this time. And I want to wish you the best of luck. I can openly root for Washington because I do not have a vested interest there. And so go Huskies. I've been wearing my Penix Envy shirt. And I I forgot to wear that today. I'm going to try to get Michael on, so that would be great.
Yeah.
But good luck, man, and out there. And I hope you guys win a national championship. And if you do, I'll be reaching out again.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always great talking with you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Kalen DeBoer, the head coach of the college football playoff-bound Washington Huskies, here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Cannot thank you enough, Kalen. We appreciate you. And wow, that's a great way to wrap up the show, John Boy.
Yeah, what a wonderful Tuesday we had. Kalen DeBoer, class act, 100%.
Absolutely, as he heads into the college football playoffs. Big thanks to Chronic Hoosier as well, and to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Of course, most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we wouldn't be here. And I love the back and forth between everybody. It's great. I love everybody gets to have their opinion, man. And I don't have a problem with it. I may not agree with it, but hey, we get to discuss it and it's fun. So appreciate Five Laughs and Fred and everybody else. No time to mention everybody, but man, it is always a blast. And we'll be back here to do it again tomorrow, John Boy. And who all do we have on the docket?
We'll have Mike DeCourcy. We will have Rick Bozich. We'll have Kyle Nedrip. And we may have Dylan Sin. We may have to move some things around since Mike DeCourcy is coming on tomorrow instead of today. But that is what we currently have on the docket for Wednesday.
Busy week, but always grateful for you guys. And so we're back tomorrow to do it again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.